.com right now, just breaking in the last few minutes, is this. United States Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, draft opinion shows. According to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico, the Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and also a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which largely maintained the right. Alito writes in this draft majority opinion, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overturned. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives, which, as Chris was just mentioning there, means returning it to the states. And in more than 24 states, there are what are called trigger laws, which would immediately render abortion a crime, render it illegal, immediately upon the Supreme Court issuing such a ruling. As Josh Gerstein reports, along with his colleague Alexander Ward at Politico tonight, quote, the immediate impact of the ruling would be to end a half-century guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion rights. It would allow each state to decide whether to restrict or ban abortion. It is unclear if there have been subsequent changes to the draft. This draft ruling that has been obtained and published by Politico tonight was reportedly drafted in February. Politico received a copy of the draft opinion, quote, from a person familiar with the court's proceedings in the Mississippi case, the abortion case, along with other details supporting the authenticity of the document. The draft opinion runs 98 pages. The document is replete with citations to previous court decisions, books, and authorities, and includes 118 footnotes. The appearances and timing of this draft are consistent with court practice. The disclosure of Alito's draft majority opinion is a rare breach of Supreme Court secrecy and tradition around its deliberations. Joining us now is Josh Gerstein. He's the senior legal affairs reporter for Politico. He's one of the best legal reporters and legal political explainers in the country. He broke this story tonight along with his colleague Alexander Ward. Josh, thank you for coming on tonight on such short notice. I realized that you didn't know 4 minutes ago that you were going to be on TV talking about this with me tonight.
No problem, Rachel. Happy to join you.
I'm not going to press you, of course, on your sourcing here, but I want to press you on your confidence in your sourcing. Obviously, this is a very unusual, if not completely historically unprecedented leak, a document that purports to be the draft majority opinion of the Supreme Court before they have issued any such ruling. Can you just tell us about your confidence in the authenticity of the document?
Well, we're very confident in the authenticity of this draft majority opinion, Rachel, both in the way that we obtained it and other information that we got that supports its authenticity and makes us believe that it is genuine. Now, of course, it's not a final opinion. It's a draft opinion. It was circulated in the court as a first draft by Justice Alito in February, dated February 10th. So it is possible there have been some changes since then, but it's our best understanding of at least where the court stood at that time, which is about 2.5 months after arguments in this pivotal Mississippi abortion case. And
you report, Josh, and again, forgive me if I get any of these details wrong. I am learning this as I'm talking about it, which is always dangerous. But you report that the court majority here is established, that there are, at least in the initial conference between the justices after the arguments, there were 5 votes on Justice Alito's reported side here. And the only ambiguity, the only question is whether or not Justice Roberts would make it a 6-3 decision or a 5-4 decision if he chose to side with the more liberal members of the court. Do you have any, what can you tell us about your reporting in terms of the numbers here, in terms of how the two sides align and whether that may still be a matter with some fluidity?
Well, it's our understanding from a person familiar with the proceedings that Justice Alito believes and that the court has 5 justices that are essentially aligned with this opinion that he's written, which is, just a withering takedown of the Roe v. Wade precedent. It pulls no punches at all. It's pretty brutal. And in the way it's structured, it kind of needs to be that way because of the way Alito confronts this issue of court precedent. Stare decisis is the legal term, and something has to be really, really wrong if they want to overturn it. And that's the case that Justice Alito makes here. There is still some ambiguity about where Chief Justice John Roberts stands. As many people noted at the oral arguments at the beginning of December, it sounded like he was finding a way maybe to approve this Mississippi law, which is a 15-week abortion ban, without completely ripping down the Roe v. Wade precedent. Our understanding is that, most of his Republican colleagues want to go ahead and take down Roe versus Wade. Now, that said, we're at the beginning of May here, and this final decision likely won't be published until the end of June, perhaps even the beginning of July. So it's fair to say that this, is a situation that is unresolved at this point, and I can't promise you that various things may not change between now and late June.
Josh, in terms of the substance of this opinion as written, again, this draft majority opinion, and with the caveat that this is a historically unprecedented leak of what appears to be a draft majority opinion from the court before any ruling is issued, with the caveat that you just described in terms of whether or not this may go through additional changes, even potentially substantial changes, before we see the ruling from the court as published later this year. With all those caveats intact, when you look at what Justice Alito wrote here, how does this comport with expectations in this case? Obviously, as you were just describing, the leanings of the justices on this matter, I think to realist-minded observers were clear even before oral arguments, and certainly were clear thereafter. But I think it was also perhaps still common wisdom that the justices would try to soft pedal this a little bit, that they would try to undermine Roe and effectively remove the protections of Roe without a sort of 21-gun salute, which is what this appears to be, at least in terms of the way that you've been able to describe Justice Alito's thinking. Is that a fair assessment of this, that this is more of a bludgeon when it was perhaps expected to be something more of a more subtle approach?
It's definitely a swing for the fences draft majority opinion. He's really holding nothing back here, Justice Alito. And, I know what the conventional wisdom was, Rachel, that maybe the court would try to soften the blow. But at those arguments, there was precious little indication of that from any of the Republican appointed justices' other real.
And the other big news tonight is the bombshell report from Politico. They obtained a draft opinion that says the court intends to strike down Roe v. Wade. That report says earlier this year, a majority of the justices on the court threw support behind overturning the landmark abortion case. But this is just a draft, meaning the court reserves the right to change its mind before issuing a final ruling. Right now, Ohio is working on Senate Bill 123, which would trigger a ban on abortions in Ohio if the Supreme Court strikes down Roe v. Wade. The bill has not seen much movement recently and currently sits in committee. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops online at 10tv.com.
We're going to begin tonight with breaking news, folks. In just the last couple of hours, Politico publishing a report saying a draft opinion circulated among Supreme Court justices suggests that Roe v. Wade should be overturned.
The case from 1973 legalized abortion nationwide. In an exclusive report, Politico says it's unclear if the draft represents the court's final word on the matter. But right now, at just after 11 p.m., protesters and counter-protesters are outside the U.S. Supreme Court in D.C. as word of this reported draft opinion spreads. According to Politico, Justice Samuel Alito wrote it for the majority, and it involves a challenge to Mississippi's ban on abortion after 15 weeks. Justices heard oral arguments on that case back in December. As of tonight, the Supreme Court has not issued a ruling in the case. It's important to note that opinions and even justices' votes have changed during the drafting process. The High Court is expected to rule on the case before its term is up in late June or early July. Now, another big note here, this ruling could impact efforts locally to ban abortions. Georgia's 6-week abortion law, signed back in 2019, has been tied up in the courts for 2 years. The judges signaling they will wait and see how the Supreme Court decides the challenge to Roe v. Wade in the Mississippi case.
Monday night, and we begin with breaking news that is, by all accounts, a report with historic implications. Politico, a well-known political news website, has obtained a draft opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court, which shows its conservative majority of justices is ready to overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, this is just a draft opinion, which is dated back on February 10th of this year, and is reportedly still being circulated inside the court and is subject to many changes. But as you'd expect, it is generating a lot of reaction at this hour. In the draft opinion, Justice Samuel Alito writes, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, and further says, quote, we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. This opinion stems from the court's proceedings in a Mississippi case, which would ban abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. Moments after that report, Planned Parenthood tweeted this, saying, let's be clear, this is a draft opinion. It's outrageous, it's unprecedented, but it's not final. Abortion is your right, and it's still legal. Well, if the court overturns Roe, abortion rights would be decided by individual states. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy also tweeted his reaction tonight, saying, this year I signed the Freedom of Choice Act, codifying a woman's right to choose into state law. He goes on to say New Jersey will not go backwards on reproductive rights. Now, keep in mind, justices can and do change their minds as draft opinions circulate. But legal experts are pointing out tonight that right now there are 4 other conservative justices on the bench who have been aligned with Justice Alito against abortion rights. Meanwhile, this was a scene from outside the Supreme Court just moments ago. People already gathering at the foot of those iconic steps for what appears to be a candlelight vigil. We're told barricades have gone up around the court, and people are beginning to show up with signs, and there have been some confrontations. We, of course, will continue to follow the latest on this potentially historic development on abortion rights on the air and online.
Breaking tonight, in a stunning breach of court confidentiality, Politico has obtained what it calls a draft of a majority opinion that would strike down Roe versus Wade. CBS 2 political investigator Dana Kozlov live in the newsroom. Dana, Governor J.B. Pritzker is already reacting to this.
Yeah, Erica, and he's not the only one. The governor tweeted about this about an hour ago, shortly after Politico reported it obtained that draft of the Supreme Court's ruling, which would strike down the 49-year-old law and leave abortion up to the states. Now, right now, barricades are up outside the steps of the Supreme Court in D.C., and a large crowd is gathering. There had been grumblings SCOTUS might make this move after hearings on Roe versus Wade in December. Those hearings were tied to a case about a Mississippi law banning abortions after 15 weeks. Politico obtained a draft of the opinion by Justice Samuel Alito, who sums it up by stating Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. According to the draft, the vote fell along party lines, with Republican Justices Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett agreeing with Alito. And according to Politico, the 3 justices appointed by Democrats are working on at least one dissent. It's unclear what Justice John Roberts will do. Again, this is just a draft, not SCOTUS's official decision. However, some lawmakers here in Illinois are already reacting, including Governor J.B. Pritzker, as we mentioned, tweeting an hour ago, hell no, in Illinois we trust women. We cannot let their most profound and personal rights be violated. Even if Roe versus Wade is overturned, Illinois will remain a right to choose state. That's because lawmakers passed a 2017 bill keeping it legal and funded by Medicaid, no matter what happens at the national level. Then Republican Governor Bruce Rauner signed the bill under much criticism from his own party.
I am being true to my values and my views.
13 states have trigger laws that would automatically make abortion illegal if Roe versus Wade is overturned. The Supreme Court is expected to announce its official decision next month. I'm live in the newsroom. Dana Kozlov, CBS 2 News. Erica.
All right, Dana, thank you.